Welcome back to Movement Professional. So today we're going to be talking front squats with Maddie here. So she had mentioned to me that in the past, as a collegiate level soccer player, that she's had some issues with back pain doing front squats, which is not uncommon, but I thought it was a good opportunity to discuss how we look at the difference between a front squat and a front squat, specifically the way we're going to be doing it here with elbows up and in and the hands aren't crossed, versus something like a back squat or all the different grips that we can think of with squatting, and just appreciating where the front squat's unique and how that might put a specific load on the lower back and how we mitigate some of that. So Maddie, first thing I want you to do is just show your technique and we'll go from there. She showed me her technique already. It looks fine. So there's nothing obvious that if I'm looking at her squat, you can do a few more, that I see that says like, oh, okay, that's why you're hurting. So she's got pretty good position actually in her upper body. She's got good position in her hips as she goes down. You can go ahead and rack that. But we're doing just the bar here. So as the weight gets heavier with any front squat, one of the things we have to think about is the arms that are being driven up and in are going to want to come down and pull. So we're going to have ample wrist extension to be able to tolerate that pressure. It's not only just the extension and the mobility, it's also a certain sensitivity that you sort of get over time. It's kind of like if you aren't used to grabbing like the roughness of a bar, after a while you might get just a little sensitivity in the hand, and then over time that starts to wear away and you kind of get callous to it. So there's a piece of that too with the extension of the wrist that you'll get over time, and even this flexion of the elbow as you come up, that just gradually over time, that might be a bit of a limiting factor at first, but the idea is that we want the elbows to be driving up and in. So let me just have you get under the bar, and then here's like an easy exercise, and this could even be a warm-up for it. So you're just going to get under the bar, but you don't actually have to take it off the rack yet. All right, so get your stance kind of where you would want it for your squat, and now what I want you to do is just drive the elbows up and in. And if you're going to take it off the bar, or off the rack, it might just come up like an inch or so. But you're just creating this isometric force where you're driving up and in, tightening your abs, pushing your feet down through the ground. Hold that for about 10 seconds, and then you can come out of it and just sort of clear. Okay. And then the idea that you're having is these elbows are driving up and in, chest stays high, feet stay planted. Okay, come on out of that. Shake it out. How'd that feel?
A little different.
A little different. All right, so one of the things that you can kind of get a sense of is as you're driving up and in, that bar is going to be resting very much on your collarbones. And you might not have to hold it in your palm as much as you think. So it might actually be like right on the tips of the fingers, because there's a shelf on your collarbone that ultimately you want the weight to rest on. So as much as you're driving the elbows up and in, the wrist can sometimes be taken out of it because you don't have to have the bar very much on the palm, but it can actually move to the fingertips. So let me have you do that again. Same type of concept, and just kind of get a sense of that it's the collarbone area and it's actually like the upper part of your pecs that are going to be taking on where the bar is, right? Now with your feet, before you even lift up, so your stance might be a little narrower than it needs to be. Take a little bit more of a wide stance, maybe even a little bit of a turnout, so that when you get under the bar, drive up and in, you push your feet down through the ground, get strong, get engaged through your middle. Now stand up with it. Okay, squeeze your butt, squeeze your abs, tighten it, drive those elbows up and in, and feel that shelf. Yeah, there you go, elbows up and in. All right, and then take it and put it back down on the rack. All right, so these warm-ups of isometrics of just really owning that rack. Elbows up and in, trying to feel the chest is very proud. You can think of the sternum bone is like very lifted here. And you actually feel like the bar is resting across the collarbones more than pulling you down, because the heavier that weight gets, the more you're going to want to come down. And the more you come down, now your back on the backside has to fight against that. So that's the one concept I would make sure that is very clear, is before you're starting to load the weight, that you're really owning that front rack position. And again, thinking directionally of when that weight gets heavier, what direction are you going to want to be taken? You're going to want to be bent forward. So driving up and in, and again, that can just be a warm-up even before your first set. And as you add more load to it, it's actually easier to feel like you're creating that isometric, because you won't even feel like you're lifting the bar off there. All right, the other thing that I think is really key is, let me just have you get under the bar, step back, and we're gonna go into just like one really controlled squat, okay? So now you get your position and you're gonna already be driving up and in, you feel that rack position. Now, as she goes down, her back looks like it's in a very good position, but how she's using her breath can play a huge role here. So I want you to have a sense of this area right around there, that's where your diaphragm is. And if you were wearing a weight belt, it would be like you're breathing into that weight belt, which we can do in a little bit. All right, so I want you to just fill up the space around your middle, around your abdomen and your lower back as much as you can from standing. Hold that and then go through your squat. Okay, filling up, filling up, filling up, and then stand up. And then now you can let it go. Okay, and as you let it go, you sort of tighten your stomach muscles, you tighten your butt. But before you go back into your next rep, slowly fill your middle as much as you can around your belly, and if you can, breathe into your lower back. Okay, hold that, go through another squat. Okay, and then squeeze it out. Okay, so each rep is an opportunity to use the breath to give you more support around your middle. You can rack the bar. All right, because that's going to be something that it's very hard to see, but it'll become more evident for you to feel over time. And that's why belts can become quite useful with powerlifting style movements or barbell style movements. You don't necessarily always want to wear them for every rep, but sometimes they can be a good teaching tool. Did you feel some of that motion to the backside? If you can't, which is not unusual, that's where you put a belt on and just say, breathe into the belt, front, side, back. All right, because when you're having that weight in the front and the heavier it gets, the more something on the back side of you has to counter that load on the front. And a lot of times it's going to be your lower back. And there's, it's not unusual to feel lower back pain with a front squat, but it's also not unusual to feel lower back pain with a back squat or any other squat. They're just different in how you have to counter them. What is a common thread a lot of times is taking this nice 360-degree breath around the middle into a belt or an imaginary belt, maintaining that as you go through the whole movement, because now instead of it being all back, it's back, side, front, and it just disperses the load a little bit more. Okay? I think you did great though, and I think it's just one of these things too. Sometimes, again, being an athlete, the number one thing we have to look at when there's pain with any type of movement is, how quickly are we trying to progress something, and do we pull back on volume a little bit? Because to me, just a couple different cues there, but I don't think there's anything substantially wrong with your mobility. It would just be like if your back hurts, well, maybe that day we got to bring the load down, or we got to bring your load down for your program or something like that.